everybody, Prepper003 here today with another group threat for SHTF scenario here. This one's going to be a little different because right now I just got kind of inspired on this topic by recent events with the caravan coming up from the lower Central America area into Mexico and into the US. And that is going to be mass migration as a group threat. And the reason I would qualify it as a group threat is because you're going to have large numbers of people from multiple different backgrounds, multiple different areas, forming one huge, almost pretty much just one large army's worth of people moving from point A to point B. Something similar to what we've seen out of the people coming out of the Middle East into Europe, where you're just having large, pretty much trains worth of people just coming up on foot across the lands. So even on foot, these people can manage to cross a large variety of space and a large variety of distance over that small period of time. So right now, I'm going to hit the 4 points on why I think that they're a major threat to preppers and prepper communities. And the first one is going to be large numbers. They'll have a large number mass. They'll have a large variety of people inside of their group. So what can happen with that is that they could go into being offensive, they could go into being very angry, they can go into just completely annihilating the people that they're going through. So, almost being an invasion force if it comes down to it. But the biggest thing is going to be the resources. With all of these people, as they're going across lands, they're going to be just gobbling up all the spare resources that they can as they go through an area. So the biggest thing, especially when it comes to their large numbers, like just think about how much water, food, and basic necessities that you need to survive for 3 days. For just a standard person, you want about a gallon of water and about 2,000 calories worth of food. Now multiply that by 100,000, just as on a base number. That is just exponential to what is going to be out there after an SHTF scenario happens, where most supermarkets, most stores and stuff like that only have 3 days worth of food. And right now it's already to the point where they're having to migrate out of the area that they're in after the so-called widespread SHTF scenario happens. And you've even seen this happen during hurricanes, where hurricanes and other type of disaster situations to where the affected people in those areas will branch out into the further communities whenever they're trying to escape the disaster zones, and you'll just see the supplies, the gas, the food, and everything else, even the water, just evaporate in the surrounding areas and outlying, sometimes in the outlying states. So that's just one of the things is that resource consumption, and with their large number of people, is going to be just devastating onto those areas. Especially if you're talking about wild game and hunting, these people will be doing that exactly as much as you will, if not more. And now I'm going to get on to the next point, is that these people are going to be very desperate. So sure, maybe if you're dealing with a family or two, they might not be desperate enough to charge a heavily armed prepper compound. Yet if you have a couple 100,000 attacking from almost a complete encirclement, doing all sorts of different type of siege warfare and stuff like that, it doesn't take a genius to be able to come up with a bare simple type of essentials to be able to overtake a prepper compound if there's only a half dozen people defending it. So it can be very devastating with them requiring more and more resources. They can go to a very extreme lengths to be able to keep themselves alive, which is something that's very scary if you think about just the sheer number of people that there will be from. So that's pretty much the point with them being desperate, and they can go to extreme lengths to get what they need to be alive. Because right now, they've already given up their home, they've already given up their life right now as far as what it used to be. All they're trying to do now is survive and get from point A to point B. And if you're in between their objective from point A to point B, they might run you over. So that's just another point on that. Then I'm going to get on to the next point, which is going to be the unknown inhabitants of the group. We don't know who these people are. You can have a mishmash of a multitude of different people inside this thing. You can have large numbers of people, well, a large number of inmates and convicts that got out of the prisons after an SHTF scenario happens. You can have gangs. You can have people that are of ill content people that don't really care about hurting somebody to get what they need to survive, or they don't care about somebody else's family dying if they're able to survive into tomorrow. So right now, if you have a lot of those people in that large number of group, like I mentioned earlier, that are already desperate, it can become a very bad day, especially for your prepper community or your prepper group. The last thing is going to be kind of an X factor between the consumption of resource and numbers and sanitation. Because think about just the amount of average human waste that a human develops just on an average day. About just kind of monitor how you even just use the restroom. Now imagine them having to be exposed out to the elements. They're not going to have proper medical supplies, so you can guess that there's going to be people sick. There's going to be people that have diseases, and they're going to be all put into this very tight, confined space of them pushing over the lands and everything else. So they'll have dead that'll be left out on the side of the road. You'll have just unthinkable amounts of human waste all along the areas that they're traveling, and not all of them are going to think of, yeah, I'm going to properly dig a hole and properly dispose of my waste. No, they're just going to go with it where they will. And we've seen that happen in numerous type of situations. Like take a look at just some of the areas where the migrants coming out of the Middle East have gone through into places like Europe. You've seen that they don't properly integrate well, and nothing against them or anything like that. I'm just giving it from an example. It's two different types of living differences, and on top of that, you also get into different types of sanitation with the areas. Like they might not always know how to go to use the restroom, or if they're going over that large area, they might not have the time. So they want to keep with the group. They just pop a squat right there on the side of the road and keep going. Well, what that can do with poor sanitation is that can damage water supplies if they're letting waste go in your clean drinking water, like your springs, your rivers, or stuff like that, where they're going to bathe. It can come down to the point to where the diseased, if they're going through your community, they can, after zapping away a lot of your guys' resources, they can leave sick, dead. They can transfer that sickness onto other members of the community. So that's just one thing, that it can be a very disastrous situation to a community as a whole. And right now, that's one of the biggest things is that a community would not be able to support something like this going through. Like maybe a small prepper family or something like that might be able to lay low while a caravan or some type of large migratory group moves on through their area, if they're able to disguise their home or if they're able to just lie low. But if you have a community or a township, I just think that it would just be pretty much destroyed by a large mass group like that. Even if it's just 10,000 or 1,000 people coming through, I just see it would be very destructive to the area and destructive to the local economy that they have kind of going on, and just the local resources. Now, it's very hard to try to defend yourself against that many people, especially like I mentioned, with them being desperate and you not knowing who's all in the group. And for all we know, they could also have arms as well. They could have trained members there too. So that's just another thing. I want to hear what you guys kind of think about this. I wanted to just kind of hit on those 4 points and just kind of think about it, because something that like I said, I just started thinking about. I really haven't thought too much about it as well. Especially if you get kind of into the different seasons, you'll have people that are going to be coming that aren't able to sustain themselves up in the northern states here in the U.S. or even into Canada, that are going to try to migrate down to warmer climates in the cold weather. Especially if, depending on the situation, you could have it to where it's a very long, prolonged winter, depending on the certain scenario that's going on. So, like I said, I want to hear what you guys have to think on mass migration being a threat to preppers, and how would you guys kind of deal with it? Because right now I'm kind of at a loss of how I would deal with a huge number of groups trying to go through my area. My best thing of trying to do it would be to try to make it to where it is a ill amount of approach to where we're not so much a hard target, if you will. But the terrain is so unmanageable that they'll just try to go around it. So for a bug out location, but if you're in town or something like that, they're going to ransack everything that they can to gather as much supplies to get themselves to keep going on to the next day. So yeah, I just want to hear what you guys have to say, and I wanted to just get this video out there as a thought topic with just what's going on in recent times. So remember, those that prepare for today survive tomorrow. Have a great day, guys.